Okay. A small, tiny little introduction because I'm tired of introducing myself. I am Omar Mohammed, a historian from Mosul. I have been known until recently as the blogger Mosul Eye, who was recording and documenting, publishing everything was happening in Mosul under the rule of the so-called Daesh or the Islamic State or the Caliphate, or many other names and terms were created, whether by the Western experts, the Middle Eastern experts, and many other people. Just a background on the subject of today, on the visit of the Pope Francis to Mosul. Before we discuss his historic visit, I would like to give a background on the connection between Mosul and the Vatican since the first century of Christianity. In the first century of Christianity, there were about 200 Chaldean people who immigrated from Mosul to India. And those Chaldeans spread out the Christianity in India and all the area in India, Asia, etc. And since then, there was a conflict between the Eastern Church and the Roman Church over the authority over Chaldean migrated from Mosul to India. The Roman Church says that they follow the Catholic Church in Rome, and the Eastern Church says no, they follow the Chaldean Church, the Eastern Chaldean Church. And since then, there was a conflict, and that conflict shaped the Christianity in Mosul. In the 14th century, there was kind of like a bloody conflict, and some of the, I believe the Pope in Rome intervened in this, and he helped to end the conflict. But this conflict happened again in the 17th century when the Capuchins or the Capuchians came from Persia to Mosul, and also there was another conflict. So Rome intervened and helped the Mosulis to solve the issue. In the 19th century, there was also another conflict between the Chaldean Catholics who follows Rome and the Chaldean Catholics who follows the Eastern Church over the cemetery of At-Tahira Church, which is now under reconstruction by UNESCO and the UAE. The Pope also intervened in this, and he solved the issue, and he sent his representative to Mosul. In the First World War, the Pope also intervened in helping the people of Mosul because they were living in a famine and a horrible financial crisis, and he sent a direct support from Rome to Mosul. So our connection, our communication, our contacts with the Vatican is not new. Every Pope would say in his early time that I would love to visit Mosul. But finally, someone who is, I would call him like he's brave enough, he's courageous, and he's also crazy enough to decide that he would be in Mosul and he will visit Mosul tomorrow. Why do I call it this is our last chance? Because the city of Mosul, especially the Christian community, is not a normal, ordinary Christian community in the East. No. Why? Because the Christians of Mosul have been, since the early Christianity, the people who took on their shoulders or put on their shoulders the message of Jesus to be spread out across Iraq, the Gulf, and the Middle East region in general. Saint Thomas, whose church is in the heart of Mosul, where Pope Francis will pray. Unfortunately, the original church has been completely demolished in the 16th century, but a new one was built in the 19th century. St. Thomas is the one who actually preached Christianity in Talkipa or Talkef now in Nineveh Plains in southern Iraq, and they maintained the Christianity in the whole country of Iraq. So a Christianity in Mosul was or served as a center or central to the Christianity in the Middle East. Many of the important conferences of Christianity that shaped the Christianity not only in the East, but also the Roman Church actually happened in Mar Hormuzd, the monastery of Mar Hormuzd in Al-Kosh, or in Ankawa in Erbil, or in Karakosh, where he's also going to visit. But why I say this is our last chance? Because there has been some kind of pressure on Mosul to portray a picture or an image that Mosul is no more capable of holding its coexistence. And this is kind of like serving the agenda that Mosul should be emptied from its coexistence. Although the only person whom I admire a lot, Luis Rafael Sacco, the Cardinal, has been pushing against the migration of Christians from Mosul. He is always preaching or telling the Christians you should remain in Mosul, because it's not only about people staying in Mosul, it's also about the very existence of Christianity in Iraq and the Middle East. So Pope Francis visiting Mosul is going to give the Christianity in the Middle East another chance to continue and to remain in its place of origin, and they will also contribute to, in many ways, to defeat the terrorism. Without, I mean, there have been many proposals, many projects, and many programs to counter terrorism. But how could you possibly counter terrorism if you cannot hold the Christian in their own land, if you cannot have them believing again in the system or having faith in the system to protect them? That's impossible to happen. If you want to defeat terrorism without a Christian, it's impossible. The second thing is, it will be the only chance where the world will really see the destruction of Mosul through the eyes of Pope Francis. I am anticipating and thinking of what he will say and how he will be shocked by the amount of the destruction, where he is going to pray in what we call the Hoshibi'a, or the church square, which is exactly the heart of the Christianity of Mosul. He will show the world what exactly happened in Mosul. Because, I mean, forgive me for this, I have no faith in UN or all its agencies. They have always been trying to cover up the amount of the destruction. The Iraqi government has always been only focusing on what they call the victory that they have achieved in Mosul. But no one is thinking about the people who have been traumatized, whether they are Christian, Muslims, Yazidis, or any kind of beliefs. The case of Pope Francis visiting Mosul, and he is making this clear in his messages. He is not only coming as a religious man, but he is coming as a person who understands what a spiritual wound exactly means. And that's what we need to address in Mosul. Those people have been traumatized, they have been suffering a lot, the negligence from the government. And probably you have seen my tweets that a street that the government haven't been able to restore in 15 years, they were able to restore it in only 2 days, because they want to show that, yes, Mosul is living in a rosy life. But this is not the reality. The government is able of restoring and reconstructing the normal life in Mosul, but they are not doing this because the corruption is beyond our imagination. I think there is a question from Laura. Why the UN try to cover up Mosul's destruction? Well, I mean, when I say UN, let's distinguish UN from UNESCO. The only real project that's happening actually in Mosul is revive the spirit of Mosul, because it's not only about the physical reconstruction of the city, but it's about the spiritual character of Mosul. The church of As-Sa'a, or the Latin church, At-Tahira church, and Nuri mosque, they will bring back not only the confidence and the trust of the people in their city again, but it's directly connected to the local economy. And if we ignore the economical aspect of the reconstruction of Mosul, we will not get any results, because revive the spirit of Mosul is not only connected to also the restore of faith, but it's directly connected to the recovery of the local economy. Because as a historian, I should tell you about the moment the An-Nuri mosque was constructed in the 13th century. It was not constructed as a religious space. It's a mosque, but it's not just a religious space. It brought all the local economy of Mosul that reached out to Europe, that the European courthouses now bragging about their curtains made of the mousseline that was actually manufactured in Mosul. So this is the very complicated network of connection between economy, religion, urban spaces. The UN has been devastating in its approach to Mosul. Until now, UN is treating Mosul as a city of fractured communities. They do not treat us as a whole community. That's the problem with the UNESCO, that they are also bringing, with the UN, that they are bringing their approaches or their programs. For example, what UN worked, or what UN implemented in Rwanda or in Africa doesn't work in Mosul. What UN is implementing in Erbil doesn't work in Mosul. Mosul has a very special context, and I know that the Pope Francis has been briefed, and that his team is well aware of the situation in Mosul. But I'm still afraid that because of the crisis of the leadership in Mosul, because the city is no more have any kind of leadership that can represent it, and also, to be honest, the Sunni leadership is still not able to represent itself in a very good shape. The Sunni leadership is still struggling to reach a clear vision of what do they really want. I mean, we have seen how successful the Shia leadership was. We have seen the meeting between Pope Francis and Sistani, and it was very important to Iraq and to the region. First of all, it's a message to Iran that Iraq can actually have an independent Shia leadership, and this is a very strong message. But when it comes to the Sunni leadership, I don't know who is actually representing the Sunnis in Iraq or in Mosul, as we are speaking about Mosul now. The political leadership, it doesn't represent all the Sunnis. The religious leadership is divided. So what I hope that the visit of Pope Francis tomorrow to Mosul, especially we have a very special person who is also under a very heavy pressure, Luis Rafael Sacco, the Cardinal Luis Rafael Sacco, who is under very high pressure from also the Christian, not only the other political parties. We hope that Pope Francis will play a crucial role in empowering the leadership of Sacco. If he managed to make this happen, if he managed to deliver a message that shows that the leadership of Luis Rafael Sacco is essential to the interfaith dialogue and to the coexistence, I believe that Luis Rafael Sacco, with intellectual leaders from Mosul, Sunni leaders from Mosul, they are intellectuals, including historians, scholars, etc. They are ready to start to establish a new beginning, because this is something crucial to everyone, that we cannot continue without sitting together and without speaking to each other. That's the very important message that Pope Francis will deliver tomorrow, and I hope that he will be fully aware of the importance of this, and that this kind of message will not be covered up by the political system. And I have seen his message to the political class in Baghdad. He was speaking in a very strong tone and language, and he touched all the important issues that Iraq is suffering from. I am now happy to receive your questions. Sorry for speaking too fast, because I am sad, happy, exhausted. I don't know what to say, but I am aware that he received my message. This makes me happy, and I know that he is going to be in Mosul tomorrow. This also makes me happy. But the fact that the son of Mosul is unable to be in Mosul tomorrow is really like death to me. But don't worry, I will survive, because I survived Daesh already, and I will meet Pope Francis hopefully in October. Yes, Professor Mario.
Just in case, I have to go in about 40 minutes, so just in case. My name is, well, in the Middle East, we call him Professor Mario. I have a two-hat thing. I am director of the Center for the Study of Religion and Politics in St. Andrews in Scotland, but I have a foundation which is actually working in Erbil. We are helping with the hospital there, with the St. Joseph's Clinic. And when I wrote to you, it's simply because I am the Pope's biographer. So I was very touched by the tweet, in a way, not knowing what happened. And so thank you for inviting me to the meeting. And the first thing is to say that whatever you want to do and whatever the group helps to do, I'm with you. I mean, the foundation will be with you. Any center of interfaith dialogue is a plus.
Exactly.
However, let me say the other thing is that, of course, Cardinal Sacco represents the Pope in Iraq, but the Pope doesn't have the power, as he did probably after the Fourth Crusade or something, to actually bully anybody into doing anything. In a sense, the Pope will deliver, the message is ready tomorrow. It's in the back, and he will deliver it tomorrow. I will be in Erbil rather than in Mosul tomorrow, because of the work with the Archbishop there. But in a way, any interfaith attempt, I think, will meet with his support. But let me just remind you, with all your feeling, is the same for every visit. I've been with him in his more than 50 visits all over the world. He goes in with a clear purpose. In this case, was to support the Christian communities, whatever their denomination, Latin, Chaldeans, whatever, to meet, of course, the Grand Ayatollah, and at the same time to bring hope. And in this bringing hope is where the centers for interfaith dialogue come. When he returns to Rome, the person who represents him there, so maybe this is not the last chance, but I understand what you're saying. It's actually the pronuncio. The pronuncio, the Vatican ambassador is not terribly prominent at the moment because he got COVID. We all smile about that, but he was supposed to be there at the airport, be with the Pope everywhere. But somehow, it was said Satan sent him COVID.
But we will never have the chance of another Pope to visit Mosul again. This is our last chance, and it's not going to be repeated again.
But you know, that I'm with you. But the Pope is not just a spiritual leader without a structure. So therefore, when he leaves, he will leave clear instructions to the Vatican ambassador to continue the agenda in a way that's why some people don't like the Vatican, in a sense that the Vatican has the embassies, is a state as well as a church. So yes, we go all the way tomorrow, whatever you wanted to do, whatever we are supposed to do. But in a sense, a document to the Vatican ambassador needs to be there. People don't think of the ambassadors, but they are the ones who have the power to enforce as the will of the head of state, so that they do the negotiations for anything and so forth. So I'm not contradicting you, I'm supporting you. And I'm saying, you know, if my foundation can help in any way, I'm with you. And I'm just finishing a book about Pope Francis, so send me to my email after what you want me to say about Mosul, and I put it there.
I will, but I must say something here very important. In my meeting with Cardinal Luis Rafael Sacco, I met him in Paris many times with also Father Najib, and I know first my personal relation to him, and second, looking at him as the only, to me, he's the only leader in Iraq, the only religious leader who really have a plan for the future regarding the interfaith dialogue. I also know that he is under a very high pressure, and that sometimes he thinks that the Vatican is not supporting him enough.
Yeah. I'm with you, but we cannot do very much about it. But the Cardinal has less power with the government of Iraq than the Vatican ambassador, because he is vulnerable to even the complaints and whatever. This is just a matter not only of Iraq, of every country. Every country, you mentioned Rwanda, from Rwanda onwards. On Rwanda, there is an impasse with the president and so forth. So in a way, all those characters need to work together, but be assured that when Pope Francis leaves, he doesn't leave the agenda that he brought. He continues in his desk. And so whatever you want to do, I support it. But whatever we need to do next Friday can also be done together with tomorrow.
Yes, my concern is, Professor Mario, my concern is that I hope and I wish a long life for all of those intellectual leaders in Mosul. But I'm not sure that we will have them with us forever. And those are the people who, probably you have read my tweets, those who are the people who started the dialogue in the 1970s, when they really felt the need for a dialogue before anything happened. I'm telling you that in the 70s, things were completely cool, and the Christianity was enjoying a peaceful life in Mosul. But when it comes, and you know probably that intellectuals can sense and feel things before they happen. So they decided to put this question on the table: how can we coexist in the future? But it was interrupted by Saddam regime, that he even framed sexual harassment cases against those people who were involved in the interfaith dialogue. How can we restore this confidence again after what Daesh did?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but we need to do it. That's the main thing. So we're with you.
Thank you. I believe that SF had a question, but he was raising his or her hand. But okay, before I take the question from SF, thank you, Rasha, for joining us, and I give you the floor to speak, please. Go ahead. You are muted.
Sorry, I'm bad with technology. I was just saying, long time no see. Omar and I go way back since we were both students in Mosul University in the same college. So it's really, I'm very honored to see what he has become and how much hard work he's done. And we continue, of course, to work for our hometown as much as we can. Regarding, I don't know exactly what you were asking, but let's just talk about the Pope visits in general. I would have to say that it's a bit disheartening so far, because I've been reading the coverage for several days now. And even when they discuss the agenda, they seem to drop Mosul. They don't mention Mosul in the agenda. It's the Pope is going to go to Baghdad, he's going to go to Najaf, to Ur, to Erbil, to Nineveh Plains. And they seem to completely omit, despite the significance and the importance of the Pope of Vatican coming to Mosul and praying in the place that only 5 years ago was under ISIS control. I hope it's not deliberate, and maybe it's just a matter of space, not having enough space in the coverage. But even when people don't report, as my friend Ali Barudi was saying, I don't think that they can ever stop us from talking about Mosul and putting it in the spotlight. It's important for the Pope's visit to Nineveh is important because it's a message of not only peace, but also of hope. And it shows that, and it proves, it's evident that injustice can never last. So when ISIS was in control of Mosul, and Omar knows this because he was under there. I was not. I left Mosul about 6 to 7 months before ISIS took over, but my family were there. I think for some people, for so many people, they thought that that dark period was never going to end. ISIS were so in control of the city, and they had exerted so much pain and death and fear. People thought it was over for Mosul, but ISIS is gone. So whatever injustices persist now, they will also find an end. That's the first message. The second message is that it highlights the diversity of Mosul and puts it on a completely different league and completely different category from other Sunni areas. When we talk about Iraq, and unfortunately it's categorization between Arabs, Kurds, Sunni, Shia, Mosul is often lumped in with Fallujah, with Ramadi, and with all respect to those places, to those cities whom we all love and cherish, they do not have or possess the diversity of Mosul. Omar can confirm this. I remember in elementary school and in middle school, our classes were almost half Christian, half Muslim. The concept of Christianity, when you grow up, if you grew up in Mosul in the 80s and 90s, definitely prior, it's very common. It's an essential part. It's not a foreign concept. There were as many churches as there were mosques. Almost in front of every mosque in Mosul, there was a church. Everywhere you go, you would see the cross. It's not a foreign concept. It's an essential part of the city's identity, which made what happened to the Christians under ISIS even so much more painful. I feel that these are points that the Pope will kind of bring back to light. And for me personally, the most important is that, and I'm writing about this, I'm trying to get the words out to do my hometown justice. But if you Google Mosul and Google images, the first image that you see is the ISIS fighter with the flags. And then you see the rubble and you see the destruction. So I think over the next phase, when we put Mosul and Google search and the images, we will see a picture of the Pope. And that's also for a brighter future. And maybe the Pope will be the first step to finally ending this association with ISIS. So when people hear Mosul, they can think of ISIS last, they think of the Pope, they think of Christianity, they think of pluralism, they think of a city that has recovered. And it's going to take a lot of hard work, but I think Mosul is worth it, and I think we can do it.
Thank you, Rasha, for the very insightful things you mentioned. And it's indeed, the city of Mosul have enjoyed diversity for a very long time, but has always been under pressure. And we shouldn't ignore the political pressure against on Mosul. Mosul got stuck, and with all due respect to Kurdistan and to southern Iraq, to Baghdad, but Mosul has always been under this pressure of the central government and Kurdistan. The city needs to be treated again as a whole, a city of all its people, not a city of just fragmented communities. And this is what the international community or the international organizations actually are not getting. They are not understanding the importance of treating Mosul as a city of different faiths, different cultures, but it's also a city that I have been going through hundreds of manuscripts from the 19th to the 20th century. No matter what your religion is, your last name will always be Al-Mawsili, whether you are a Catholic, Chaldean, Assyrian, Muslim, Shia, Sunni, etc. You will always put Al-Mawsili as your last name. And this is what has been actually, it's also not to mention the very negative media coverage of Mosul during Daesh. But we hope that Pope Francis and his visit to Mosul, he will himself, I am completely sure that he will be shocked with the amount of the destruction that he will see around him. Because don't forget that he is going to pray in a destroyed church. That's the very essential and important point. We don't want to keep this destruction. We want to move forward, and this destruction can be restored. It can be rebuilt. The trust can also be rebuilt as we can rebuild any house or historical building. If you have any questions, please, you are free to ask them, but let me address some of the questions in the chat. From Tanya, on what's the situation of Christian today in Mosul. It's very painful to say, Tanya, that inside Mosul there are only few numbers of families living in Mosul. There is nothing on the state level. I'm speaking on the community level. It's very a good situation when it comes to the connection between the relation between Muslims and the Christian. But on the state level, the Christians are still afraid that they don't have enough protection from the state, whether it's on the constitution or on security level. But in Nineveh Plains, we are happy to see that the Christians are returning and they are thriving again, but it's still, they are also under oppression from the Iran backed militias, especially the militias that's taking control of many villages, and they are actually trading villages with them. I've been speaking to Father Najib many times, and he told me that the Iran-backed militias has forced them to trade a village, a Christian village, completely a Christian inhabited village, with another village, because the Iran-backed militias want to create its own, what they call it, safe space. Yes, Anas, you may ask your question, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Omar, for the introduction that you made. That was very insightful, and the historic background is very enriching. The question is two questions, actually. First one is, you're talking about restoring the diversity of Mosul. That means persuading Christians to go back. Do you think this is possible? I mean, the Christian Iraqis who went to and started their life in Australia or Europe or America, do you think they will go back? That's the question. Not only in Iraq, I mean, Syria and Lebanon. I mean, there has been a massive migration of Christians from the Middle East, and I don't find any reason for them to go back. There is no state. It's ruled by a bunch of militias, dictatorship. They don't have rights. They don't have the protection of the state. Not only them, of course, Muslims as well. But I mean, I don't find any reason for anyone to go back, mainly a Christian person who was persecuted on top of all the other reasons that Muslims were persecuted. He was persecuted because he's a minority, religious minority. And it's not like they were persecuted more than the others. Everyone was persecuted the same. And the second question is, I was reading before about the, because I know a big number of the Christians in Mosul, they live in the Reef al-Mosul, the villages of the Mosul. So basically, are they all displaced? Are they all out of these villages? Because I know it has a significant historic what is the word? Historic significance. So
Yeah.
where are they? Are they totally displaced? Are they in Baghdad? Are they in Kurdistan? Are they out of the country? Thank you.
I will start with words I heard from a Christian historian who is living in Ankawa now, the respected Behnam Salim Hababa. He is the most respected Christian historian from Mosul. I will tell you that they, yes, want to go back because he says, in his own words, that living outside Mosul makes me feel I am a foreigner in any place where I live. They feel that they have been uprooted from their land, but they are eager to return. But the question is, Anas, it's the question of the leadership, whether it's the Sunni leadership, the Christian leadership, the Shia leadership. Let's not forget that the division among leadership is not only limited to the Sunnis. There is a division among the Christian leadership, the Shia leadership, the Sunni leadership, and that's the problem, that we are not finding or getting a leadership from all the different faiths in Iraq that they can sit together. Again and again, I will always insist on this, that we have lost him, Baba Sheikh, from the Yazidi leadership, but we still have Rafael Sako, we have the Sistani, we have Sunni leadership, Sunni intellectuals, and it is possible that they can meet and that they can establish a new social contract that can ensure the Christian and all people of different faiths. And I am completely against the word of minority, which is something comes from the legacy of the colonialism. The Christians started suffering since the colonialism began in Middle East. We have to start treating the Christians not as a minority, but as equal citizens in Iraq. If we can manage to also get their rights written clearly in the constitution, I am confident, Anas, that the Christians, they will return tomorrow to Mosul. And that's the case of the economy, the case of the leadership, the case also of the political system in Iraq. I mean, let's even if we start forgetting a little bit about the Christian case in Iraq, I mean, look, all Iraqis are not feeling safe in Iraq, and the number of Iraqi migrants is increasing. It's the case of the political system and also the economy of the country. We don't know what's the future of Iraq tomorrow, not after 10 years. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I am afraid that this is kind of like a euphoria movement that the Pope Francis in Iraq, and I have seen many journalists who have been like saying like, well, this is much more beyond what we anticipated. But let's not forget the reality that Iraq is still suffering from the lack of the trust in the state. The people, ordinary people, do not know what the state means. They do not know what the state is, what the state can provide them, and the state doesn't seem to have any kind of clear plan for all the people of Iraq. And I believe we have to move on and stop thinking of Iraq as a country of small minorities. We have to start treating all the citizens of Iraq as equal citizens. And this doesn't happen easily. We still have a constitution that starts with an Islamic phrase. How can I convince the Christian, the Yazidis, the Sabians, etc.? We have, I mean, there is no other solution than to take really brave steps on the state level. It's always on the state level, Anas, and not on the population. The population can coexist, but when it comes to politics, the population will be used as tools to feed the conflict. Thank you. Yes, Haidar, sorry, you
Yes.
had a question.
Yeah, thank you. In case is it possible, first of all, I am so happy to be with all these nice people. And hi, everyone. My name is Haidar Al-Jorani from Finland, and I am sorry I joined somehow a bit late. Actually, it wasn't a question unless if there is someone or I somehow crossed the road for someone has been want to ask. Actually, I just have some kind of comment, and I would like uh, to say something related to visit of the pub, and in terms of the title here about who is control the security of Mosul. From my point of view, I think the visit of the pub, it just took kind of big propaganda with full appreciate for this visiting, but I don't think it will affect somehow about the future. I mean, the near future of the Mosul, even so far the far future of Mosul. Geopolitically, Mosul, play important role not just in Iraq, even in the Middle East. And that's why I think now Mosul, it's required to be a special issue in the public opinion. That's what I would call all the activists, all people who they are interesting to move Mosul to be like a special issue in public opinion, and to call all the international community to pay attention to the Mosul, not just to rebuild the city, but more than to rebuild the people and the human.
I am afraid,
And
I am afraid, Haidar, that, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, Omar, say. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry for interrupting you, Haidar. I get your point, but I am afraid that what you are actually saying is not possible anymore. The last time Mosul was in the heart of the international politics when the Mosul question happened in the 1920s. The city of Mosul has been, and its role has been minimized since the 1920s, and it actually, it's sad to say that that Britain contributed mostly to minimize the role of Mosul, and the Iraqi government got this formula of minimizing and keeping Mosul out of the political spectrum and political space. The Iraqi government is doing this.
Shortly,
only hope that we have now generation of Mosul and take Mosul out of its small borders to the international space, and I hope that in a course of a decade or two, the young generation will really lead Mosul to. A question from SF: how can we recovery of more practical level, whom we can trust to send money to? It's not the question of the money, it's the question of
I think there is a problem in the voice. Sorry.
I think we lost him, but he will reconnect. Yeah, he will reconnect. Obviously, he has.
Yeah.
Omar,
no,
we
he
lost you
came
for
back.
a while, so if you close your camera, that will improve the connection.
You came back, Omar. Can you repeat, Omar?
sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, sorry for the bad connection. What I'm saying is that the international organizations working in Mosul, they are not addressing or they don't have understanding of the very complicated social Mosul and economical structure of the city. The subjects, people who are who have been working in the old city, and it has been serving as the central, or you can just call it the Wall Street of Mosul, which is the old part of the city. This needs to be supported more. It needs to be expanded. The city has huge agricultural lands that are actually not invested. They are abandoned. The agriculture, the local economy of Mosul can bring the city back and can help the people, whether Christian, Yazidis, etc. I mean, imagine when I mentioned this local markets, it's not just about the economy. It's the tool to reconnect communities. When a Yazidi makes or produce their dry fix in the heart of the mountain, they need a market to sell it, and their market was Mosul. They are no more able to sell this product in Mosul. When the Christian produce tahina, which is, I don't know if you know what tahina is, it's something produced from sesame. They need a market, and their market is Mosul. When Baghdad wants to buy products from northern Iraq, it's from Mosul. This is the meaning of the city. It connects between too many lines and sites. The negligence of the government is stopping Mosul from growing, from developing, and stopping Mosul from actually even there's a conflict over the reconstruction of the airport. I mean, imagine if we would welcome Pope Francis in Mosul airport rather than going through this very risky trip from Baghdad, then to Erbil, and then driving from Erbil or taking his helicopter from Erbil to Mosul. I mean, there are many ways to enhance the local economy, but I am afraid the international organizations are unable. Either they don't want to understand, or they are unable to actually understand this. I have a question from Alison. How did you and other advocates for Mosul manage to get UNESCO to play such an activist role in preservation? And yeah, I understand your question. It was a very difficult task, Alison. It's a very also complicated and sensitive one, but UNESCO, and I have to mention here by name Her Excellency Noor Al-Kaabi, the Minister of Culture in the UAE. Yes. They were both crucial in taking or making the decision to reconstruct the Nouri Mosque, because the project began with the Nouri Mosque and later with the Asa'a Church and the Tahira Church, in a very critical time when there was a decision within the Iraqi government to completely demolish the Nouri Mosque, because they thought that it represents, or it's a representation of the Daesh or the terrorism in Mosul. But they took this very critical decision in a very critical time, and they decided that this should be protected, and that for that we are very grateful to them. The young people of Mosul are tirelessly working to advocate for the cultural heritage of Mosul, because the more you have this kind of advocacy for cultural heritage, the more you have the people involved, the more you have the people feeling responsibility toward their cultural heritage, and then the international community, such as the UNESCO, will feel this kind of responsibility. Therefore, you will force them to act.
So you guys kind of started with one goal, and it became this larger project.
You should put one goal. Do not disturb yourself with many goals. You should say, I have this goal, I want the mosque to be rebuilt, and you work only on this case.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure, thank you. I think I have other questions. If there are no other questions, there is a very important question which I also seek an answer to it, which is, who is in control of security in Mosul? I wish anyone can tell me the answer of this question, because I really don't know who is controlling Mosul in terms of security. There are too many security forces. If you want to do something, you have to go through the Iran-backed militias, you have to go to the national security, you have to go to the local police, and then to the army, to the military, to the other units, and then you go to the coalition, and then you will not get your job done because you don't know who is in control, and everyone say it's not my work. Jeremy, would you like to share your points with us directly without just writing? Would you like to speak? Jeremy Barker? Okay, sorry. Your point with regard to the political and economic dynamic is so important, and yet it seems to the problem of the international funds is another problem, Jeremy. I have been speaking with the international coalition with the EU about establishing a transparent mechanism of monitoring the EU funds in Mosul, because there is a circle of money going to Iran-backed militias. Whether the EU is aware of this or not, I don't know. There has been a lot of money put in Mosul, but what are the results? What are the outcomes? There are no clear results. I mean, such kind of money could have built another city, not only a destroyed city, could have built a second city. Yes, Tati, please go ahead.
Thank you, Omar. I just wanted to know your view on your assessment of the likelihood of Daesh reinstating a caliphate in the near future. Do you think there's any probability for that, or we're way past that risk?
Well, I believe that the so-called caliphate, they had their chance in 1925 and they failed to establish it in Mosul when they had their Congress of Ulamas in Cairo. They couldn't make it in Mosul. Daesh also failed, and we should know the history of Mosul and its connection to the caliphate. Mosul always refused the caliphate, and for this they were genocided by the Abbasids in the early Abbasid period when they ruled Mosul. So Mosul is not on good terms with the caliphates. I am sure that there will be any other attempt from terrorists to establish their caliphate in Mosul, but the risk of terrorism is still there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Rasha, would you like to say something?
I think you've covered everything, Omar. Thank you for this.
But we would like to hear your opinion as a person who have.
I think we lost Omar again. Hello?
I think
the problem.
I think it's
Omar. I think there is no voice from it. Yeah.
So Omar, if you can turn off the camera and just ask the question.
I think he lost the connection.
Yeah, I think he lost the connection.
Yeah. He came back. Yes.
Sorry, everyone is home. That's why the internet is very bad. Rasha, I was asking, since you have a good insight on the international politics and also how the international community is looking at Iraq now. How do you see the situation of Mosul and the future of Mosul within the larger picture of Iraq?
Well, I'm sad to say that I don't see a necessarily very positive one. The only hope I have is in the people. The international community, since 2000 and pretty much 2012, Iraq became a secondary file within a larger file of the region, and it fell under a category where the two important and main players were Saudi Arabia and Iran. We're in the year 2021. Saudi Arabia has taken a massive step back for, due to its own doings, kind of the self-destructive behavior it's had in the region. But now the two main focuses are Iran, and we have a player that has been gradually but very slowly growing its influence, which is Turkey. Now, Turkey has never ceased in being a regional power, but only now we can see that it has military adventures here and there. All of them have been relatively successful. Its military is growing, and you have a government in Turkey that's really gripped its control, and there's a lack of human rights. There's there's almost the sense of diversity in Turkey is kind of gradually disappearing. And since it has done all of this without any retribution, without the international community stepping in, and Iran is also misstepped in many ways, it continues to fund terrorism activities in several countries and is responsible for the suffering of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people also. Yes, there are sanctions on Iran, but we can expect them to be relieved and lifted very soon. What is stopping these two states from even claiming more victories? I find that Turkey is going to, within the next 5 and 10 years, will have a very dominant role in North Iraq, in Mosul in particular. It still sees Mosul as part of Vilayati Mosul, part of the Ottoman Empire, that it's gradually trying to revive in a different, in a more modern and in a different sense, where there's not physical conquest of territory, but there's influence that automatically makes a place simply a satellite city for it. I see that happening, and I see Mosul and perhaps its population, perhaps several cities also in Syria, in eastern Syria, that will not have any choice because they cannot continue living under domination of groups like the Iran-backed militias. I think the destruction and chaos and damage they are causing to Mosul and to other cities always go under the radar. You don't hear about them in the media unless there's an American strike involved. It's the extortion, the way they've dominated and monopolized the economy, the way they have suffocated the people when it comes to even the protests. Young Moslawi youth were not able even to protest freely with the rest of Iraq because immediately they said, we would accuse you of being ISIS and Ba'athist, and we have an international community that still associates Mosul with ISIS and will believe it. So the youth, they retrieved and said, we'd rather not participate than ruining the protests for everyone else. So with this, if this context continues in another 5 years, naturally Turkey is going to be the savior, and it's going to be the better option, as bitter as it is. And it has some history in Mosul. There is leverage that it has even amongst the population that will continue to increase. It has control of the water flow that it can also use to its benefit. And I find that Baghdad is very indifferent, and it's not really, it continues to ignore Mosul almost the way that the rest of Iraq treats Mosul. It's not even ignoring, it's the sense of indifference that is absolutely heartbreaking. I mentioned the protest and in October that we all supported and we're very passionate about. But if you look at the reformists, even in their agenda, rebuilding Mosul and improving life of Mosul was not even a top 100 point. It was not even mentioned on the agenda. So the rest of Iraq kind of pretends that Mosul is not there. It's like I was telling a friend a while ago, in the movie The Lion King, when Simba is with his father and he asks them and he tells him all of this territory is ours. And the little cub says, what about the dark area? He says, oh, we don't go there. I feel like Mosul is like that. Mosul is like the dark area no one wants to go to, no one wants to talk about. And how heartbreaking, how irrelevant is a city to people that even a Pope's visit cannot make it important enough to feature in a headline. And that's heartbreaking.
Let's hope the Pope's visit tomorrow will shed the light on Mosul. I have good faith in the Pope's visit, and what others couldn't actually do, he will be capable of doing, because he knows how to speak to those people, like those who suffered in Mosul. And we really hope that we will not be part of any other conflict. As you mentioned, Russia, we are very concerned about the revival of the Ottoman-Persian 17th century conflict in Mosul, and Mosul has been suffering. Mosul had a good leadership at that time and took advantage of the Ottoman-Persian conflict. But unfortunately, today we don't have that leadership, so we don't know how to benefit from that conflict, if I would say, because this is how geopolitics works. But let's hope that Pope Francis tomorrow will bring hope to the people of Mosul, especially to the Christian, and also he will show that the city of Mosul can never be a city without a diversity, and it is indeed the city of diversity. Thank you also, Professor Mario, for mentioning this and for your will to pass the message. I'm sure that we will have more discussions, and I will contact you very soon. I am coming to Rome in October to meet with His Holiness Pope Francis, and what they will not tell him in Mosul, I will tell him in Rome. Don't worry. Okay, stay safe, all of you, and I wish you nothing but the best. Be careful of Corona. Always take your mask with you. Take care of the elderly, please.
Bye, Omar. Praying for tomorrow's success.
Tanya, you
Bye.
wanted to say something? Yes, please.
Omar, thank you. I have a question.
Yes, please.
I am in Colombia. Yes, I'm from Colombia. My
The
question
best coffee ever, yes.
Yes. In South America, the situation in Iraq is studied very little. Yes. I didn't only study art. Yes. But in a Christian region, yes. My country is very, very Christian. Yes. The region is very, very Christian. The Pope Francis is Argentina. Yes. Is South America. Can you tell me why we should be interested in what happened in Christian in Iraq?
Why the Pope should be interested in what happened to them?
Yes.
Well, I mean, he knows very well, Pope Francis knows very well the importance of the Christians of Mosul, Jerusalem, Aleppo, Damascus, and many other eastern places. I mean, for only like one reason, people sometimes forget that Jesus is actually from the East. He's not from Rome. So we have to always remember that Jesus is from here, that the Christians of the East have contributed to the Christian theology, and they developed the Christian theology, and it's also as in Latin they say it's Orianos, or the Orient. It's the place where the sun rises, and this reflects the rise of the sun, not the actual sun actually, but it's actually the truth and the knowledge and the philosophy. So that's why Pope Francis understands this very well, because he is a person of people, and his time in Argentina is a good example of why he understands the importance of meeting with the people who suffered in Iraq, in Mosul, and in many other cities in the East.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I know I am a boring speaker, but it was really important to speak to you about his visit tomorrow. Also because I am unable to go there. So I'm feeling myself like, yeah, I might be there, but spiritually. Stay safe, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
Bye.